Hello and welcome to DY's recommendations for the Grand Weapon Trade ticket that we got alongside Roulette this year. So just a little bit of housekeeping. The way to get this ticket, if you didn't know, if you haven't, I don't know how you've missed it, but if you draw in the roulette, you will get this ticket given automatically. Now this ticket you can spend from now until January 5th, 4:59 AM, convert that to your own time. And I highly recommend waiting until at least after your free pulls on January 3rd before you use this ticket. And the reason is because on December 28th, we'll get a Flash Gala, and then on New Year's, we will get a Legend Gala. So you want to wait, because whoever your ticket, you might pull them, right? So it's much better to wait for the free draws before you use this ticket. Now, I know that there's some people who will justify using the ticket early, saying that, hey, I need multiple copies of this weapon, it's okay. I'm going to save bars this way, it's okay. I'm going to be real, I'm going to be frank. There is no real justification or valid justification in using your ticket early. It's under 2 weeks, just wait 2 weeks. You might get lucky, you might draw multiple copies of the thing, and then you could have gotten something else. If, there's so many things that can happen. Is it likely that you get punished? Probably not. I haven't done the math, I don't know. But is there a chance? Yes. Is there any harm in waiting? No. It's just pure impatience to use your ticket now. So wait before using your ticket, I implore you. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's talk about my recommendations. So every Grand is here except for Vayne and Medusa, right? So what I've done is I've made a tier list of sorts, right? I'll link this page in the description below. And over here, I talk a little bit about it. Basically, this is more of a character usage tier list. It's less of a meta tier list and character usage. They're very closely tied together, but yeah, the distinction here is that characters towards the top will be used more frequently than characters towards the bottom. I am not at all considering the strength of the Grand Weapon. If you want to know the strength of the Grand Weapon, go to Advanced Grids, link right here on the sidebar. Plenty of articles that we've written on things like that. So yeah, strength of the weapon is not considered at all. I'm only looking at the characters. Once again, don't use your ticket, blah, blah, blah. And then one final thing to note is that all the characters are in alphabetical order within the tiers, okay? I've not sorted within the tiers. It's just in alphabetical order. All right, with all of that out of the way, I'm going to talk a little bit briefly on each character and why I placed them where I've placed them, and maybe give a little bit of nuances as well. It's going to be very brief because there's so many characters, as you can see, but let's get started. So first up, the two best characters available on this ticket, in my opinion, are Percy and Zeta. Percy, I would go as far to say, is probably the best character in the game at the moment. But yeah, these two characters are ubiquitous across Fire. They're used pretty much in every single form of content. In fact, it's so hard rating the other Fire characters just because these two are used everywhere, and the third character is pretty much use swap depending on the situation. Between the two, I would say that Zeta might actually be better for slightly newer accounts or more developing accounts, just because I think the character provides more on her own, whereas Percy, although he is meta defining and, like I said, probably the best character in the game, I think requires a little bit more investment to see full use out of. But either way, you won't go wrong picking either of these, and like I said, probably my top two picks out of the entire Grand Weapon Trade ticket. All right, let's move down a tier. I'm going to talk about Gabriel first here. Gabriel, I considered putting her up with Percy and Zeta, but I sort of wanted to illustrate the difference between Percy and Zeta and everybody else on the Grand Weapon Trade ticket. I can't talk, sorry. But yeah, Gabriel is an incredibly strong character for water regardless, and probably the best water Grand at the moment. She's used pretty much everywhere. The only place I think she's not used really is Ogi teams. In Guild War, you're going to see a lot of different teams that use Gabriel. Her backline passive, of course, the Primarch passive is very useful, and she's used alongside quite frequently with her disciple, Europa. Europa is slightly less used than Gabriel. Gabriel is used in normal attack burst as well, whereas Europa tends to not be used in those cases. But where Europa shines is HL content, which is where Gabriel sees less use in. Europa's S2 brings amazing defensive utility in those HL raids like Hexa and Far Zero, and pretty much any time you want a little bit of extra defenses. All right, let's move on to Wind. Wind, we have Naru. Naru, still an amazing offensive character. Yes, she did see some less usage in super duper high-end meta Wind Guild Ball setups, but pretty much outside of that, you'll see Naru used in many different places. In permanent content, you don't really see Naru in Hexa or Far Zero. That's where characters below here like Charlotte and Kaguya shine. But for pretty much all the other content in the game, Naru is still an amazing offensive character who is able to put out so much damage in a short amount of time. All right, next, let's move on over. So between these three, Nehan meta-wise is probably the most relevant because he provides a meta-defining skill with his third skill and his first skill, I guess, as well. Nehan mostly normal attack burst, certain optimized FAs, and can also be used in charge attack teams due to his 100% charge bar gain skill. But yeah, mostly for optimized stuff you'll see in Nehan. I struggle recommending Nehan if you're a newer player, but regardless, he is still very, very powerful. The other two characters here, I'll talk about Cosmos first. Cosmos is an incredible FA character and also heavily utilized in HL Ogi setups alongside characters like Horus. Cosmos will very likely also be relevant in NM250 once Light Guild Ball comes around, and overall a really, really solid character. Lucio is more on the FA side of things. With his FLB, he's become a really solid damage dealer and also brings some team utility as well. But he can also be used in certain optimized light HL setups too. But those are very, very endgame. For the most part, I think if you're a newer player, Cosmos is probably the best pick out of these three light characters. All right, moving on to Dark, we have Fadil and Orologia. Both characters form the backbone of Dark HL stuff, and they're used in FAs as well. Orologia a little bit more frequently than Fadil because you don't have to click Fadil's field, which makes it a little bit more annoying for FA. They can be used in manual burst, but not like they're not meta manual burst characters. Orologia can be used in more clicky Magna setups as well. He enabled some setups for Magna last Guild Ball, so might do that again. But yeah, pretty much used in a lot of different places in Dark. And Fadil also sees use in Ogi as well. All right, let's move down a tier. So we have Feeny here. Like I said, it's sort of hard rating the other 5 characters, but Feeny's main use is in HL raids. She is part of the best setups in Far Zero and Hexa as well. You can also use her in FA, but it will be hard activating her passive where she has to revive. But regardless, still a good character. Moving on, Uriel. Of course, we have Uriel's backline passive, but other than that, Uriel is still a very solid offensive damage dealer in full auto setups and has also seen use in manual burst rotations also. Next, we have Charlotte. Charlotte is the newer you are. Charlotte will be really good in FA because she does a lot of skills, and skills are very useful if you're a new account, but she also has really, really good endgame potential because the character provides some incredibly powerful tools for HL raids like Hexa and Far Zero. So early on, she can be an Ogi character as well. She can be a skill damage character, and later on, you can use her in endgame as well. All right, and then let's talk about Sandy. Sandy for light can be used in FA, certain HL teams as well. Was used sort of as an echo tool for certain manual burst teams last Light Guild Ball. But of course, he also brings his Primarch passive. Overall, very solid character. Okay, let's move down a tier. We have Mikhail. Mikhail, backline Primarch passive. And then her frontline usage has really, really dropped off ever since the introduction of characters like Zeta and Alanan FLB. But she can still be used alongside characters like Wilnas and Percy if you're lacking the other tools. But these days, she's mainly just for backline use. Let's go to Wind now. Wind, we have Iwia and Kaguya. Iwia is mainly full auto. Very strong full auto character. can be used in certain manuals where you utilize the double strike given on turns 7 or 6, I forget which one. But yeah, they're sort of niche, but mainly an FA character. And then Kaguya is mainly a HL character. You can use her in some defensive FAs, particularly in Guild War, but outside of Guild War is mainly HL. I didn't want to put her in the same tier as Charlotta, just because I think Charlotta is a little bit more useful overall, but still, she is a great character in HL raids. Okay, next we have Cosmos, Lich, and Ray. I think each of these characters perform better in different contexts. So, Lich, mainly full auto. Pretty good full auto character. In the past has been used for some HL raids, but I think Dark has better tools for HL now. Halmel can be used in full auto, but Lich is probably better, and other Dark characters are probably better for FA. But if you're fighting something where you specifically need a lot of dispels like Luminera M3, then Halmel is very good in those cases too. The other place Halmel's really good in is Dark solo for HL raids. So in places like Super Baja, Halmel's Dispel comes in very handy in those cases. I'm not really considering this too much, but I'll just mention it slightly. Halmel's S3 can also be used for certain off-element setups. And then finally, Ray is used in certain FAs where she swaps out for a backline character, and most recently she's also been used in the Martial Mastery Trial, the CCW raid. Provides a sort of unique mechanic where she can give double strike to a specific character, and no other Dark character can do that, so she enables certain things that you can't do otherwise. Alright, let's move down. We have Shiva and Wilnas for fire in this particular tier. Now, from here, the tiers, I think pretty much the characters are less utilized overall, but they might have some specific niches where they're good in. So Shiva, specifically, most of the time is used for low button burst for fire, because he provides damage cap if you have fire attack up, which Percy provides, right? So Percy provides fire attack up, Shiva now gives you damage cap, so it's a nice combo. Wilnas is at the moment mainly Guild War. Mainly in Guild War, you see him as a big normal attack burst character with like Percy and Alanan. Outside of Guild War, you can use him in FA, but I think overall there's better characters. And if you end up doing a charge attack team, Wilnas's charge attack does a lot of damage, so you might see him in some NM250 teams. Poseidon at the moment is really only low button burst setups like 0 button OTKs, things like that. You can use him in some charge attack teams, but I think for water there are better charge attack characters. But regardless, he does provide some utility and a decent amount of damage for charge attack teams. Speaking of charge attack teams, we also have Alexiel for Earth. With her FLB, she's become a really good CA character. I think there's an argument to put Alexiel maybe slightly higher, but for now I've just put her here as well. Very good character defensively. You can use her in places like Tefnut FA as well. But yeah, mainly Ogi character, Diaspora host, that sort of thing. Galleon. Galleon's a character that's sort of fallen off in usage recently, but she still pops up every now and again for her first ability. You can also use her in FA as well, but I think for the most part there are better characters in Earth for that these days. And then finally we have Sandy. Sandy is used in null element FAs for the most part, so things like Ultimate Bombardment HL. You can also use him off element to switch or like to dispel every buff the boss has, but that's super duper niche. For the most part, it's for Earth null element HL or null element FAs, sorry. And yeah, doesn't really see too much use outside of that. Okay, and then we have a John. John is sort of similar to Shiva in the sense that she is for low button normal attack burst. She provides echoes on triple attack, and yeah, synergizes a lot in those very short OTK or like things like NM90 sort of setups, when you just want to click as little buttons as possible but deal as much damage with those little buttons. And then speaking of more Guild War-ish characters, we have Olivia. Olivia is a very niche character that really is only useful for a couple days of the year because of her Twilight Terror debuff, where it blocks the boss from doing anything, or blocks the boss from doing any special attacks. Outside of Guild War, she really doesn't see too much use. Alright, and then finally we have the blue tier. Pretty much characters here don't see much use overall. I've separated it because like this bottom tier basically sees no use. You might argue, hey, DY, you can use Mugen or Rosetta to sacrifice, but like they just substitute, or you can use somebody else, it's fine. So yeah, for the most part, they're not used. And then these ones I've just separated out because they might have a use somewhere. So Lance really isn't used too much, but like skill-wise, he is better than these three. Wham just really isn't seen too often these days, but is used in Super Ultimate Bahamut solos. She has a place there. Grimnir, for the most part, is full auto only. And then Luo is unfortunately basically a market pantry version of Lucio. Lucio pretty much does everything better than Luo. And then Vera can be used in certain charge attack based OTKs, and her S1, or is it S1? But the sub all can protect you for a little bit. Uni can be used for HL rates if you're missing meta HL characters. But yeah. And then Orchid in Dark has really fallen off in usage, but can be used for budget burst setups with the S3. And I'm not really considering it in her placement here, but she is used with Fire in PBHL, which is the gold bar farming raid. Okay, so I think that about covers it. Once again, I will link this particular page in the description below. If you have any specific questions, let me know. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.